RaceSpotTV presents another season, another round of Pro Mazda for Season 4 2019. It's Week 5 action from the Autodromo Jose Carlos Pace here in Sao Paulo, Brazil. The virtual version of Interlagos with all coverage on RaceSpotTV. Randy Cheneth is alongside myself, Jonathan Simon. Randy, welcome again to another round of Pro Mazda. It's been a few weeks since we casted one of the first races this season, and now we head to an unsplit race, which is good to see. Big grid, 26 laps of action, I should say, and it's going to be another good one for sure.
Yeah, as you said, Johnny, it's been a couple weeks, and we'll bring that graphic up for everyone to see the races we've been doing. It was me and Johnny for Laguna Seca at the start of the season, and we had a guest crew for the third week at Brands Hatch, and then Interlagos. You got the good old boys here again. But it's going to be a bit of a gap, Johnny, after this one. New Hampshire, the Nürburgring, Road Atlanta, and Silverstone all going to be off air. We're going to bring you the last three races all in the trot of Zandvoort, Barcelona, and Phillip Island. Some very wildly differing circuits there as we close out the season. For sure. God, this is some throwback music to RaceSpot back in 2014, to whoever used to listen to RaceSpot back in the early days. But we'll have a look at the grid in a few minutes' time. There are a few moments' time, I should say. There's the track details up on screen. Very short circuit is Interlagos, which is why we're able to complete 26 laps around here. It's a 4.2 kilometer circuit, 2.6 miles depending on your units of choice. 33-degree track temp in qualifying. That should transfer to the race here in overcast conditions. The grid is up on screen, and look who is up on pole. Harley Lewis starting alongside Stefan Ruskin, separated by 2/10 those guys. Scott McIntyre will start in the second row. Brilliant performance from McIntyre. Ridley follows him, and the rest of the grid will be on screen, of course. And you'll see down the order some notable names. I haven't seen Ollie Rotgen race, who's going to start on the 8th row in the 16th position in quite some time, Randy. So people in iRacing, they go absent. We see them back in the top split. Great to see Ollie racing again. Yeah, it definitely is. And like you said, a lot of names kind of down here in the mid-pack for sure. A couple of drivers that kind of stand out. But yeah, James Webb, Troy Nightliner down near the end of the road. 23 cars, so as you said, a big field to do 26 laps of action around here today. Yeah, and the cars are gridding for the moment. So again, we said 26 laps of action. Now, if you're new to Pro Mazda action, we are not expecting a pit stop here today. But of course, getting these tires up to pressure, up to temperature, and up to their ideal working range is ever critical. And how brilliant is Interlagos? Formula One in Japan in a few hours' time, and they head here to one of the final rounds of the season. I wish it's on the Formula One calendar for eternity, basically, this racetrack. We've had some brilliant races here in open wheelers in the past, including the brilliant 08 finish that went down to the final laps. How about that wonderful wet race to decide the championship in 2012? What will happen in Pro Mazda this afternoon? Will Harley Lewis take a valiant victory? The lights illuminate. And we go green from Interlagos, and another quick start from Harley Lewis. Wow, Scott McIntyre is insanely quick off the line. The Canadian now already into the second position past Stefan Ruskin. Great start for him as they head down through the Senna S for the first time through turn 2, through turn 3. Most of your leaders getting single filed out. And what about the mid-pack? See side by side back here, this is Donald Poole, who we're looking at in the 16 as they come off of turn 3 and down this relatively long short straightaway here, back straight. But fight for the lead is on, and Harley Lewis up the inside. Trying to defend from Scott McIntyre. They're still going to be alongside each other here on the run down to Ferradura, the double apex right-hander of turns 6 and 7. McIntyre into the lead from third. So it makes this track so good. There's so many cutbacks where the outside of one corner turns into the inside of the next, and it really provides great racing. Scott McIntyre, great start from him. Started in third, passed 2 cars, and now leads this race as Harley Lewis is going to settle into line. And we're going to see for the first time, Johnny, off of Young Sal, the slipstream and how it's going to affect these cars down that long front straightaway that dominates the lap here.
Got to stay within the clutches of the driver ahead here in the draft. Lewis demoted to second. Ruskin demoted to third. Ridley remains in fourth, though. And it looks like there could be a pass here for the lead. At the end of the first lap, McIntyre leads. Lewis going for the inside as we ride on board with him.
See, can he get that pass done? He's got it done, I think, before even the braking zone. I think McIntyre may have facilitated that move a little bit and somewhat let him through. So moves Harley Lewis back to the race lead. But I think notably there, Johnny, something that's going to be important, McIntyre led the lap at the timing beam. So if we come down to a last lap drag race, you can come off Young Sao, and even with the draft, that second place car may not necessarily pick the spot up. I saw in the background cars fighting. It may have been Gabriel Perez, but they seem single filed out off of turn 4.
Yeah, Perez now right behind Ann Medema. Medema started 7th, Perez started 8th, and they remain in those positions for the moment. Couple of cars scrapping away up ahead of them. I see Erwin Vandenberg right behind Craig Ridley. Stefan Ruskin demoted to 4th there, with Ridley making a brilliant move into Ferradura.
Yeah, that he did. And Craig Ridley kind of a part of this fight as well. Started in the 4th spot, remains in the 4th spot. One driver, my Lord, Johnny, who had a big start. We haven't seen this. We've been so focused at the front of the grid. Andre Cini started in 22nd,
yeah,
up to 15th after a lap and a half.
Well, he's our number 2 driver, second highest I rating, didn't set a qualifying time, so it could have been deliberate. As far as I know, he took the track in qualifying. Wow, he's made that. What was that? Did Prudhomme make a mistake there? Michel Prudhomme?
It might have been a slowdown, maybe the situation, but yeah, Andre Cini absolutely moving through the field as we take a look back up the running order, and Harley Lewis able to hold on to this lead.
Compose yourself. Oh, yeah, I was laughing at that too, but
yes.
Compose yourself, mate. Oh, Wachini's made another position, by the way, in the meantime. You can't start a sentence. I just started another sentence, and he's made a 3rd position up. You can't even speak without him making up a spot. He's up into the top 10.
Yeah, not making any grammatical errors right now is Andre Cini as he absolutely rides right through the field. Next driver he's going to have in line is going to be Ryan Hammond, who started in the 10th spot. So something for Andre Cini, Johnny, definitely went wrong in qualifying. Matter of fact, he didn't even get a time, so maybe ran out of time or just collected a 1X on his the 2 laps that he had available to him. I see only 1 lap was attempted to be run and didn't get a time. So for Andre Cini, starting at the back of the field, absolutely flying through this field.
And he's only got just under 8 seconds to leader Harley Lewis, who's ahead of Scott McIntyre. Obviously, McIntyre led the first lap, but was repassed there after his rapid getaway. Ridley's still ahead of Ruskin, and Anne Medema and Jean-Michel Noyon are alongside each other here. Oh, a couple of drivers in the pits now. So this is, as far as I know, unless something's changed, normally we don't expect to have pit stops.
Well, there's so many drivers coming down, I don't think it'll be penalties. We have 3, 4, 5 drivers. 4 drivers all on pit road. John Michael Noyon is in the pit lane. Craig Ridley is in the pit lane, and so seems like a pit stop is indeed scheduled. 6.9 seconds for Craig Ridley. So maybe a scheduled pit stop is a bit of a change for this season this year. I know at Laguna Seca we didn't do one, so that's catching the both of us a little off guard.
Well, I've never seen pit stops in Pro Mazda in the 3 years I've covered this series, so unless something's changed for this round, that the drivers have found it's quicker, we haven't been notified of it. But there you go. Pit stops in play. We'll see what happens with the leaders nevertheless. Perez, part of the lead group on the rear end of Anne Medema. I think the draft, again, Randy, is going to keep these drivers within the clutches of each other, which is going to be important. You know, if you're going to make a pit stop early, you have to make sure you rejoin the racetrack with a bit of a tow.
Yeah, I mean, it's like running in a NASCAR Cup car at Talladega or Daytona, isn't it? You have to, when you eventually make your pit stop, you need to come out on the racetrack and you need to have a little bit of drafting help down the front straightaway. Do either of the leaders expect to hit pit road this time? seem like the answer is going to be no. And the thing that's going to be interesting to me here, Johnny, is that in these pro Mazdas, I mean, this sort of reminds me of old school kind of Formula One strategies. How do you really sort your fuel strategy out? You know, what's the mix between having enough fuel in the car to kind of go long enough and have a short enough pit stop, but how light can you make the car to be good here at the start? Says Scott McIntyre is keeping Harley Lewis honest, and maybe McIntyre, maybe he's just playing the slipstream game here to try and help save some fuel and make his pit stop a little shorter.
Yeah, exactly. Saw that happen in the Supercars E-Series during the week, and it seemed to help a few drivers. And it's going to help in most forms of refueling motorsport. But back before they banned refueling in open wheelers in Formula One, the longer you ran, it seemed to actually be beneficial.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that it was sort of the strategy, at least in the Williams F1 on iRacing. That was typically what you do. I remember doing a season, you would kind of fill the car up so you go like just about halfway. That'd help you have a slightly shorter pit stop, and then you would come down pit road, get the car light, and then get out there and go out and run. So you'd go a little bit past half distance in the race. So I remember it was a bit of a learning curve for me. I kind of just did a for-fun season in the FW31 years ago, and coming from GT car, yeah, I did a full season, all 12 weeks, and coming from GT cars is a little bit different. As on Medina and Gabriel Perez, they're going to fight nose to tail as they work down the front straightaway. Might be a move in towards the Senna S.
Perez just lacks a bit of straight line speed. Close and needs to get the run out of here onto the Redo Aposta. The next succeeding straight here at Interlagos. I think he's a bit too far behind to make a move this time round. But did you receive iRacing credits then for doing all 12 weeks?
I think I did. As the fight's
well
on here between the 2 and the 3, Andresini is that number 2 car who's up to 7th. So 15th spot for Andresini in 6 laps.
And in the past 2 laps, gained 0.6 of a second on the leader of Harley Lewis. So Genie definitely still possible that he can win this race after starting from the back row. It's going to be a tough one, but you never know in motorsport. We just we covered Rallycross just a couple of hours ago,
yeah,
and
like
I know Mitchell de Jong dominated that. Yeah, but I've seen some races in the past there where it's sometimes just an unexpected victor. Garrett Lowe at Iowa, for example, last year.
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely a big win for Garrett Lowe when he won that race. Very unexpected. Luckily for him, both Eichen and Mitchell de Jong decided not to play nicely with each other through the infield of Iowa, and in some ways gifted that race to him. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens here, though, Johnny, because as he said, as Cini's running through the field, he's only 7 seconds back. The problem I have to wonder that he might have is that, if other people are saving gas maybe a little bit, trying to have as short of a pit stop as humanly possible, if he's having to push through this field, he may just find himself in a situation where he has to have a slightly longer pit stop. Maybe not much longer, might only be a second or 2, but enough that it may make it, nigh impossible for him to chase down some of those people at the pointy end of the running order. But he's eyeing up Daniel Sanfilippo right now, so.
He's got to make this move quick. I don't think it's possible here into the Desquita del Lago. Turns 4 and 5 at Interlagos. Oh, he puts the pressure on, doesn't he, here on Danilo Sanfilippo. This will be a brave move around the outside. Oh, man. Hold your horses. Go for the switchback, Andrea. Why not? It's just not possible. Just not possible at all. So whilst we watch that scrap happen, I had an eye on our behind-the-scenes cameras here, locally, and Harley Lewis up ahead in the lead. If you watch him here on the main straight, he's going to break the toe of Scott McIntyre. Well, I'll tell you what, I've just cursed him. Commentator curse at its finest, because Scott McIntyre could pass him here for the lead. I was about to say he's breaking the toe from McIntyre, but he's not. McIntyre's not looking to pass. And again here, did McIntyre just back off there?
Yeah, he's saving gas a little bit here with McIntyre. And, we talked about it, Johnny.
The clutch?
I doubt he's clutching. He's probably just lifting and coasting early. You don't generally have to clutch in to actually save fuel. It's actually best if you just lift off the throttle entirely. So the one of McIntyre is trying to save gas. Now remember, it was relatively short pit stops for the guys who did come down pit road. I wonder if you're not having to take a huge chunk of fuel I wonder if it's possible to save and go the full distance.
And whilst you were talking about that, that's interesting. We'll come back to that. But Andrea Cini has just made a pit stop and missed his box.
Oh, no.
So, for such a good race so far, replay worthy for sure. It was a quick stop of 6.8 seconds. But here's the replay, Randy. Talk us through it.
Yeah, I'll rewind the cameras again, but you can see he just... Maybe, I assume what's happened here, Johnny, is obviously he's not gone a qualifying time, and I think he's been used to having his box a little bit further down the garage, and I think he finally reacted when he saw the lollipop man, and you see him just having to do the awkward parallel parking maneuvers to get into the pit box there on the replay cameras as we take a look back at your fight for the race lead. But it's an easy mistake to make, and I know a lot of people have made it. I remember I've had teammates in endurance races do that. I remember, I think it was the 2015.
I've done that.
Yeah, I remember it was the 2015 24 Hours of Daytona. John Fuller, my teammate, he came down pit road. He drove right past it, and he didn't even realize he had driven past it till he was midway down the pit lane. So there was no way for him to go backwards. And he had to limp that car around on what was roughly a quarter of a lap of fuel. Just basically put it in Toyota Prius mode and just got it around the racetrack. He managed to do so. We didn't have to tow, but it wasn't a fast lap. We'll just say that.
What was it, Volkswagen that lied about their fuel numbers?
Yeah, that was Volkswagen who pulled that. But no, that wasn't fuel numbers. That was something I think a little bit different. I'm not exactly sure.
I was gonna say, thank God you didn't. If you put it in Volkswagen mode, you probably wouldn't have made the end of the race. But you can't say that. Sorry, Volkswagen. I love your cars. But
lawsuit incoming.
Anyway, pit stop's happening. Now we're expecting our leaders to come in soon enough. But I guess, we can confirm that pit stop's probably required. Andrea Cini now, his race is, well, it's essentially taken a turn for the worse with that slow stop. But for Scott McIntyre, he's lost the draft. Is this a good time, you reckon, to make a pit stop and catch Harley Lewis out by surprise?
Perhaps. I think the longer you wait, Johnny, I think in some ways you almost get into a rallycross Joker lap somewhat scenario, but it's almost backwards. I think that for these guys, at this point, there's a number of cars 30 seconds or so off the lead, and I'll just reference Andrea Cini here. He's the most recent one to come down pit road. You're going to spend about 20 seconds, out there on pit lane, because you got to remember, Andre had that awkward moment of trying to get into the actual box, so maybe 25 seconds or so, and you look kind of at the timing screen, you have the likes of James Webb and John Michael Noyon and others who are kind of down there in the mid-pack right now. A part of, I think, the strategy here with when you time the actual pit stop is it's as much as important as trying to find just clean track to come in and to come off with. If you come down pit road and you're getting a bunch of slower traffic that's doesn't plan on pitting for a while that you have to race, it's not really a great situation for you.
No, definitely not. And Perez now, we're watching the number 9 on screen there. That's
Hardly.
That's Harley Lewis in the lead. But Perez behind is awfully close here to Anne Medema. Very impressed by Anne Medema's event so far. From 7th to 3rd, Perez has followed Anne along. And here we ride on board with Perez. Perez is... I remember the first time I ever heard of Gabriel Perez, had an insane race, won the event, and I've always expected a little bit too much from him since. It's unfortunate sometimes when you overachieve, your first race. He's such an incredible talent. I hope he gets it done today. But up ahead, I'm not sure if they're dicing away. It's hard to see, but it looked like, McIntyre's fuel saving again, I have to say.
Yeah, I think so. I think McIntyre, he was able to reel Lewis back in. Maybe I think over the previous lap, was able to bring that gap down, and now he's being a little bit more aggressive in the slipstream. And one thing that did confuse me that McIntyre was doing, Johnny, is we've seen him that he's slipstreaming. We've kind of seen and confirmed that. But coming on that stretch between turn 3 and turn 4, there's a couple times that Harley Lewis just pulled over to the driver's left, and McIntyre just didn't follow him and sit in the draft. Now, I'm not saying you have to, be all over the back of him and be hounding him and, be pressuring him on the braking zone in towards turn 4. But whenever you're trying to save fuel, you want all the slipstream that you can get to help you do so. And it was a little bit odd to me that a couple times he came off that third corner and just sort of sat there in the in what was clean air down the straightaway, getting no slipstream help at all.
And Troy Neidling up in the 12th position, just been passed by Jean-Michel Nayon. So then what would you do, Randy, in that situation? How would you approach this? Same way McIntyre has then?
For the most part, yeah. If you think, especially if you think he can make it a the full race distance, or if he can take a lap or two maybe off your fuel number that you have to take, I think what Scott is in general is doing is just fine. It's just that, you know, there's been a couple times we've seen him coming off turn 3. He's not gotten into Harley slipstream where he needs to do so. You see down the front straightaway, he's trying to keep in it for every meter of that front stretch through turn 1. We'll see if he does it this time or if he's more aggressive trying to get back in line. But Scott should know his number, and we'll be able to see here off of turn 3. And you see here he does duck back down and get behind the slipstream of Harley, so he's being a little bit more aggressive with it now. But if you think you have the fuel number and if you think you can make it, Scott's doing everything he should be doing here.
Yeah, most certainly. It's going to be a tough one. We're not even 50% through the race, so this one far from decided. We'll still keep an eye on Andrea Cini because you never know if he can fight back in this race after that abysmal pit stop phase. I'm sure he'll be looking back at that mistake, hopefully never making it again in the future. But you got to learn from your mistakes. That's always important. And now, I think for the top 4, they're probably in prime position right now to break away from the rest of the pack. I mean, Stefan Ruskin hasn't really matched his qualifying pace. Started on the front row. He's not even close to the top 4. But apart from that, I think if the top 4 right now work together, these 4 can just have a nice little fight in the last 5 laps on their own, and nobody else will be in the fray.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, obviously, we kind of have to wait for the pit stops to cycle through to see how close they're going to be to one another. Now that said, if you're planning on splitting the strategy here, Johnny, pit stop sequence opens pretty much this lap, lap 13. End of this one, you'll be on 14, so 13 completed, 13 to go. So it's going to be interesting to see if anyone comes down at what will be the exact halfway marker, or people do what was generally the standard strategy in the old Williams FW31 and maybe wait a little bit longer. Anna Medema, though, all over Scott McIntyre, doesn't seem too keen on saving fuel, but Scott will hold on to the spot through turn 4.
Yeah, but even through turn 1, Medema pretty much floored it. Never let go of the gas. Was full throttle and trying to make a move on the Canadian of Scott McIntyre, who is our number 1 driver here this afternoon. He has the highest I rating in the field. The other driver, Andrea Cini, who's number 2, unfortunately, like we said, had a chance to possibly win this race on the back row, but that's gone to pieces. But let's see if Medema here will... I mean, if you're not fuel saving, you know, Scott's got to be careful. He could lose a bit of time here in a fight.
Yeah, he definitely could, and that's what's going to make this so difficult now, is that Medema and Perez are all over the back of him. And if Perez, you know, even if Scott has a theoretical pace advantage, it's, you know, one of the easiest ways, you know, one of the easiest things to do. If you have a car that you think is fuel saving around you, and if you don't think you can hit that same fuel number that they're maybe going for, is off the front straightaway, no one's going to peel off on towards pit road just yet. It's an easy trap to fall into if you're trying to fuel save, of trying to get into a fight. And it's something you should do if you're around a car you think is fuel saving. Try to pressure them and try to make them use up that fuel. Try to make them make mistakes fuel saving, make it so they lift a little bit too late. Maybe they pick up the throttle a little bit too hard coming out of the corner. And Medema this time, this is the exact thing I was talking about, Johnny. Why isn't Medema just all over the slipstream of McIntyre off of turn 3 there? It's just, perplexing to me.
Yeah, oh, and now Medema's off the racetrack. That's not good. Gonna put him under attack from Gabriel Perez behind. These two haven't really made any moves on each other. They've just sort of stuck in their starting positions and just reeled the other drivers off one by one. But the tires are in pretty good nick. And this begs the question, maybe the drivers don't want to run onto a fresh set, because the overcut could work, because maybe a fresh set of rubber will take a bit of time to get up to temperature and get up to that ideal pressure range.
Well, are they even changing tires? I haven't actually watched closely enough on any of these pit stops.
Yeah, good point.
I don't know if the cars are getting jacked up. I mean, one of the things that iRacing does model is some of the lower class cars, they don't have like professional level pit stop sequences. So like one car that I'm 100% familiar with this is the Ford Mustang FR500. The way the pit stops work on that is that it gets jacked up with like an old school manual jack that then I think it's one pit crew member or maybe two, they do one tire at a time, and it's 5 lug. And the way fuel goes into the car is through like 5-gallon gas cans as opposed to like a big 20-gallon can or a big pump or something like that. Is Medema all over the back of McIntyre again, going to duck out of the slipstream this time and try to pull ahead on the run in towards turn 4. And Scott's going to hold on to it. But if that's, simulated here, it's not out of the realm of possibilities that you're not getting instant, tire changes. But Medema all over Scott once again, Johnny.
Backs off, though, heading into Ferradura. Smartly so. They're just going to lose time. And whoa, that was close with Gabriel Perez.
Yeah, that was, I don't think Perez was expecting the check up there on the exit of Ferradura.
Wait a sec.
What happened?
So I've been doing, this is the toughest part, this is the toughest commentary I've done in quite some time. I've been trying to read the forums as I'm racing. Someone said that in a race the other day, I'm going to read this word for word, so I hope there's no swear words. So I'll try not to read them. A driver was a driver was the only one. Okay, quote. A driver was the only one not to pit for refueling in today's strength of field race. This seems strange also because watching the replay of their laps, they didn't seem to fuel shift. And, fuel save. That's from Gianni Risvaldo. So there's potential that if Scott McIntyre saved enough fuel, he can still win this race without making a pit stop.
Interesting. So it's definitely something we're looking at possibly. I would have had to gone back, and I've obviously, I'm not familiar with the race in question. I would have, it'd be nice to know what was going on. One thing I will say in his comment, he mentions the RPM on the upshift. When you want to save fuel in the sim, you do not want to short shift. That's actually not advisable in the sim because of the way fuel usage is modeled. It's modeled entirely on throttle position. Revs have absolutely no bearing on it, unfortunately. But even then, even in real life, when you want a fuel save, typically what you do is it's just straight all on lift and coast and throttle application. So it'd be interesting to see if these guys can do it. I will say, for Medema and Gabriel Perez here, Johnny, they started pretty deep in the running order, 7th and 8th, and it's a little odd to me that they're on your top 2 as closely as they are. So I wonder if what we're seeing is, Harley and McIntyre both started near the front of the field, 1st and 3rd. I almost wonder if those two are fuel saving and Medema and Perez are going as hard as they can.
If that's the case, they're essentially out of contention for the win because they're going to have to pit. So you never know. Perez at least behind. I'm looking at... Definitely not riding on board here on the screens. You can see. Oh, McIntyre's off. Oh, when he rejoins. Well, I was going to say, did he collide with Perez? But Perez has made his way through. That's the worst outcome for Scott McIntyre, who was having such a splendid race so far. Replay on screen.
Yeah, I don't know if that was as much of a rejoin. I think he just sort of lost control of the car on the grass because that's a very, very difficult point of the racetrack to hold on to the car if you get off the asphalt, Johnny, because it's constantly curving to the left, so you're going to have no grip on any of the tires, and there's actually sort of an asphalt bump there as well that you have to deal with. I'll bring that back on board again, and I think that's exactly what happened to Scott here. I think he went through turn 2, caught the inside curve, that spat him out into the grass. Scott, by the way, was not fuel saving into turn 1 that time, but you're going to see him hit this curve a little weird. This spits him onto the grass, and then that little concrete bit, I think, is what spat him out onto the racetrack so aggressively. So it's a good thing we didn't see a big incident there with that one, because that would not have been great, but I don't think that was an entire situation of Scott just spitting himself back out onto the racetrack in front of traffic either.
And back to live pictures. We're watching Perez now trying to make a move on Medema. There's no DRS in this form of open wheeling series.
But, man, Medema doesn't have the slipstream to defend up ahead. And remember, Perez is the one fuel saving. So I forgot to say it before. Before McIntyre had this spin at this corner here in the center S, Perez behind on a separate camera I was watching was definitely backing off the throttle at the end of the straight.
Well, we'll see here on towards turn 4. Just watch the rev counter. There's definitely a little bit of it there. It's not a hard fuel save though, Johnny. I think Scott McIntyre, when we heard him fuel saving earlier, I think he was taking a bigger chunk out of the fuel. So what might be happening is Perez might be trying to get the average down over the course of the lap, over the course of the race. But I think McIntyre may have done it in big chunks, because I know shortly before right before he had that incident on the onboard replay, he was not saving gas going into the corner. He was full throttle all the way up to the braking point.
Yeah, but the problem is in this car, Randy, 18.7 liters is the max you can put into the vehicle in the setup. And I mean, that's 4.9 gallons, depending on your units of choice. And the race requires the same amount. So that's why these drivers are fuel saving to the max right now.
Yeah, so it's definitely tight. So you probably need to save, in essence, probably about a lap, I'd reckon. It may be a situation, Johnny, as quick as these pit stops have been for these guys, only about 6 seconds, it may only be a lap or so of fuel that they're really adding to the cars. So we're going to have to wait and see how things are going to pan out here. It reminds me of the old days when they just got the GT championships back on the sim, and when they first started playing with the fuel limited series, Johnny. I'm not sure if you really remember that, but they, especially when I know you're not much of a sports car guy, but they were doing these like 40 or 30-minute races. I can't remember the duration, and they were initially going out there and going like, okay, we'll do this amount of fuel. There's no way anyone could do this race on one stop with this amount, without coming down pit road, without coming by fuel saving. My old teammate Rupe Turkala, which is sort of an older name if any of the people who've been around for a while may recognize in some of the old GT races back in the day, he was always an expert fuel saver, and he would go out and he would do the race without stopping and win, and people would complain on the forums. And I remember there was a couple times they actually changed the fuel load like once or twice over the week, like also on the Monday. Rupe would go and win a race without pitting, and people would complain, so they shortened the fuel limit. And then he did it again, so they shortened it again, and then they did it again. Times in a week. It was absolutely hilarious. But it might be a similar thing here as Perez is all over Medema.
I mean, you always figure it out in motorsport. Even when you think back to F1, when they introduced the Pirelli tires, the first few races were tough. As we see Perez here, probably going to back off here on the straight, most likely. Just fuel save a little bit. Maybe not. I don't know if he's going for the move here. He's going to have to form up and just be careful of Scott McIntyre, the Canadian behind. McIntyre's just a little bit too far back as we ride on board with Perez. Let's have a look here. Let's have a listen to him. Listen to him at the end of the straight. So on this straight, on the Renault Aposto, it doesn't seem to fuel save as much as one driver goes spectating out. That's Sam Medema out off track, but definitely on the main straight, Perez seems to be backing off. You know what? He might be good on fuel right now, Gabriel Perez, because he's not fuel saving as much as he was a few laps ago.
Yeah, I mean, that might be the thing. They might just, they're out there running. I don't think any drivers, no one in this session has a spotter, so they're all doing this by themselves. In some of the esports championships, if this were a potential window, you definitely have spotters and crew members running numbers and just typing them into a calculator and, saying, okay, you've got the number, you're green lit. Some teams, especially at the top level, actually have software that'll tell you about that stuff. And I know that because my team has that. But, it could very well be a point that he sort of hit his number. We're right on board here on the run in towards turn 1. And you can listen to the revs and watch the rev counter. We'll see if there's any lift in code going in towards turn 1. He's going to duck out of the slipstream. And I think he hesitates there, Johnny, but I don't know if that's fuel save as much as he just didn't think the move was going to be on for Ann, and he just didn't want to go side by side.
Well, this is benefiting Harley Lewis up ahead in the lead. So Perez has the pace, and he can't get past Medema. He may be stuck in that final podium position for eternity, basically, in this event. And whilst these drivers all scrap away, there's a few drivers down the back of the pack making some pit stops. Ridley, Nayon, Ariseas, Pascal Filotto, they've all made their pit stops earlier on, but everybody from 1st to 6th, all the way down to Michael Prudhomme, they haven't made their pit stops. Danilo Sanfilippo hasn't entered the pit lane. Juan Carlos Cordero hasn't entered the pit lane either, and a few other drivers to add to that list.
And one thing, actually, Johnny, just, thinking about Harley Lewis, if that fuel number is close, remember, Harley really hasn't had any slipstream help all race long. There was about a 2-lap window when we had where he lost the race lead when Scott McIntyre had it, and ever since he's been the car out there pushing, creating the clean air through the dirty air, the draft for everyone else out there on the racetrack. So Harley Lewis, he's not had any draft help. We're going to listen on board with him this time in towards turn 1. We see a little bit of slow lap traffic. He keeps that slipstream for as long as he can and ducks out of the way. Let's see him towards turn 1 if there's any lift and curve. And the answer to that question is no.
And going back, I remember a story back when I was racing in, I think, 2014, and I was against Mohammed Patel, who's one of the best sim racers in the world.
Raced with Mo a lot. Well,
Mo's awesome. And he, we had I think it was like a 30 lap or 20 lap sprint race at Hockenheim or something. And the tires, everybody opted for the soft tires, which would last the whole race. I opted for the super softs, which were about a second a lap faster, but they only lasted about 40% of the distance. And then I found a trick where the tires would wear about, let's say, 8% a lap. I'm just making up a number.
Right.
But I'd find a way to save them through the right-handers at Hockenheim. So I'd only wear them about 2-3% per lap. But I'd back off about 9/10 of the pace to do that. So I was still a 10th faster than everybody. And then it was like 2 laps to go. Oh, there's a spin up ahead here. Medema spun around. I think Perez may have collected him. I'll go back to that little anecdote in a second. But this was over at the Bico de Pato, the duckbill corner. And let's have a look at the replay, Randy.
Yeah, we're going to have to see what happened to Ann here in towards this right-hander. And I think there was contact. I think the 5 of Perez just got into the back of him. We'll rewind the cameras again, and we'll judge it on the nose cam. How close does he get to Medema? A little bit too close is the answer.
It's a bit clumsy there from Perez. Just carried a bit too much apex speed, whereas Medema went for that late apex, and it caused a collision that, I mean, let's hope for Perez's sake he doesn't have too much front end damage, but that nose definitely looks like it's bent, so I think he's going to lose some straight line speed possibly.
Yeah, I think you're right with that, and Scott McIntyre is keen, and he wants to take advantage of this as we're inside of final 4 laps to go of this race. We also had a lapper just come off of pit road. That's Troy Needlinger, who now separates the race leader from second position. This fight between second, third, and fourth place running Ann Medema not far back off. But talking about your anecdote, Johnny, we heard something actually kind of similar with the Petit Le Mans this past weekend with iRacing. Team SimRC, they figured out a trick with the tire strategy. Most people, the tire strategy for the most part, especially when the sun went down, was in the GTE division just to double stint the tires. So you just, come down pit road, put tires on it, take fuel, go out for an hour, come down, take fuel only, go out for another hour, and then come down pit road and then do a full stop with tires and everything.
Yeah.
They figured out, because it's such a right-hand dominant circuit, every pit stop they changed the left-hand tires, but every 3 pit stops they changed the right side tires. So we were in this weird situation trying to figure out what 2 tires they were changing during the race on the commentary team, and it's the first time I've ever heard of people doing 2 tire stops on the road courses.
Yeah, wow. It's very uncommon, as Randy just said. McIntyre is not too far, not too close behind, I should say, for the second position. It looks like Harley Lewis is going to run away with the win here after that collision between Perez and Medema just a couple of laps ago. And we'll see if anything changes in our final podium positions here. Late pit stop for Michael Prudhomme. He's not confident on making it to the checkered flag on fuel. Will any of these leaders make it to the checkered flag on fuel? Harley Lewis, another question for him. Now, let me just finish my anecdote quickly as Prudhomme's in the pit lane. Should be a quick 7-second stop. 8.3, I was close. And I think after the race, I almost won the race, and with 2 laps to go, Patel passed me because my tires basically, I think we're at 10% of the wear. This is on another sim where you're able to read that.
So pretty much almost about to burst off the car. And he said to me after the race, great race, awesome strategy, never do that again. He said, you scared the hell out of me. And I was like, oh, all right. I didn't even know it was going to work. I just said I got nothing to lose here. It almost did. But nevertheless, Patel's going well. It's been a while since I raced against him. And it's a nice little scrap going on here, like we said, for the final podium positions.
Interrupt quickly, and here it is. I was about to say it. Pitkellis, remember him from some of these Pro Mazda series. He said, "Don't be surprised if top guys pit with 3 laps to go. Harley Lewis is in. Perez and McIntyre stay out."
Yeah, that's critical. It was about to go straight to that. Harley Lewis dives into the box. That hands the lead to Perez. Will Scott McIntyre make it to the checkered flag on no pit stop? That's the question. McIntyre is still fuel saving here. Wow. This is really critical for the win of the race. Lewis out and away in 7 seconds. He's already at pit exit. Lewis is behind Stefan Ruskin. Ruskin hasn't made a pit stop though.
This might be a good day here from Ruskin. You mentioned him, Johnny, the fact that he kind of started in the second spot and fell down the order. Maybe the answer to that was just he was fuel saving hard. So now the question is, does Perez have the fuel economy to get there? And does McIntyre have the fuel economy to get there? Because McIntyre off of turn 4, it sounded like, I don't think the engine was sputtering, but it sounded like he was playing with that throttle, just trying to stay close. I think McIntyre is really nervous with the fuel number, and we're about to get the answer because this is your last opportunity to come down pit road off of Young Sal.
Here they go. They're going to begin the final lap soon enough. Perez versus McIntyre. White flag will wave, Randy. And McIntyre dives in. Now it depends how quick this pit stop's going to be. Oh, he was almost speeding on entry. I think he'll be okay. But let's have a look at Scott McIntyre. Perez is going to gamble here on the final lap. Perez is going to go straight to the line and potentially win this race.
We'll have to wait and see. We want to see what the stop is for Scott McIntyre, see where he comes out. Stefan Roskin should be clear. Oh, what is happening?
No.
Scott McIntyre has rolled early. Yeah, that's the race killer. So for Scott McIntyre, he is going to fall down the order as we will shift the camera focus back to Gabriel Perez and see if Gabe can make it on the fuel.
This is confusing. I've seen 5 pit times registered for McIntyre. This is bizarre. So something's going wrong for him in the pit stop. His race is done. He's out and away now successfully in 13 seconds, but all eyes are on this man on screen. Gabriel Perez. Will he make it to the line? Does he have enough fuel to get him to that checkered flag?
Looks like the answer might be yes, and if he can't, this man of Stefan Roskin is, I believe, going to be the second place running car. Scott McIntyre, we know, just came down pit road. Roskin's definitely he's short shifting. He's trying to save every bit of fuel he can, but Gabe Perez is on the front straightaway, and I think he's got it.
He's done it. He's done it. He can coast from here. Well, time to hype up Gabriel Perez yet again. It's been a while since I've seen him win a race, and for some reason, I thought he was about to dive in the pit lane there in the final lap for no reason. Gabriel Perez wins Week 5 of the Pro Mazda Championship here on iRacing. What a thrilling, dramatic headline event. And Perez will bring home Stefan Ruskin in the second position. Those 2 drivers did not enter the pit lane. It will mean Harley Lewis, who led every lap except 3 out of the 26. He'll only end up on the final podium position here in 3rd. Oh, what a finish, Randy. And out of all people to pit, I didn't expect Scott McIntyre to do so, and it's hurt his event. He comes home in 6th.
Yeah, that's what's really shocking to me is Scott sounded like he was saving all sorts of fuel, and it seemed like he was going to have the fuel economy to get there. I mean, why else would you fuel save so hard if you don't have the fuel economy to get to the end? But man, oh man, what a win there for Gabriel Perez, and what a run for Stefan Roskin as well. He did quite well in that one, but that was a really fun race, Johnny. It was a nice change of pace to have one of these Pro Mazda races where strategy was really a big decider rather than just, go out there and send it.
Oh, wow. Well, I'm really confused right now. So I thought McIntyre came home 6th. He actually came home 7th. He right behind Michel Prudhomme.
Someone in the chat just asked Gabe if he pit, and Gabriel just responded, "Pit stop? Why? Haha."
Oh man, I don't even know how he did that. There's methods as well. And Scott McIntyre is pretty disappointed with his pit stop too, just in post-race chats. I'm just having a read for that. Perez said he had 0.8 liters left for 1 lap more. Come on, Gabriel. He's cheating.
I don't doubt it. I don't know about that. I don't know about that. But I mean, people who are good at fuel saving, they can save a lot, and it really is a learning curve. I know, Johnny. I mean, I did a 30-minute video where I analyzed some of the fuel saving from the World Championship race last season at Spa. No, was it this year? I think it was this year.
No, last year.
I can't. Well, if it was was it a GTE car or a GT3? Oh, you know what? It may have been the Spa 24, not the World Championship round. But I analyzed some of the fuel saving there, and it is quite difficult, and a lot of people just flat out don't know how to do it properly. They do things, like you said, like they clutch, or they lift and coast too long or not long enough, or they don't use the track geography to their advantage, and so it's not it's not that surprising, at least for me, to see someone do that. But regardless, Johnny, it's time for post-race results.
Oh man, well, where do we start? Let's start at the top,
with
obviously.
The winner, yeah.
Gabriel Perez comes home in the first position here. Brilliant event from him. He was quite bullish about his chances with fuel. And I'm just getting distracted reading the comments. We'll talk about that before we wrap up here, but there's a method that Perez used to help project him into that lead. Ruskin joined him without a pit stop. Brilliant stuff from those two. Hartley Lewis led 23 laps and he came home in 3rd at the end of the day, the Canadian. He was followed by Craig Ridley behind, who made an early pit stop, decided he wasn't going to fuel save, he was going to push to the limit. Only ended up 4 seconds off Lewis. So pretty decent event, you could say, from Ridley, who made that stop. Same can be said for Jean-Michel Nayon. How about Prudhomme just edging ahead of Scott McIntyre? Who knows where Scott McIntyre would have ended up had he not had that calamity in the pit lane late in the race. We'll cycle through the order. Rest of the top 10 is rounded out by James Webbs from UK and Ireland. We see Andrea Cini ended up coming home in 13th there, just behind Rutgen and Sanfilippo. And a couple of other notable names down the order include Donald Poole, our first driver 2 laps down. Not the best of races for Donald Poole, the American. Troy Heidlinger ended up down the order as well, just ahead of him. Some DNFs to the name included, to the list included Richard Valley and Juan Carlos Cordiero, who was out there running quite well before his DNF. They were right behind Erwin Vandenberg. So I'm just trying to read the post-race discussion, Randy, and I mean, this is Scott McIntyre said he realized what Gabriel was doing after lap 6, but he wasn't able to do it himself. So what was Gabriel Perez doing?
Lifting and coasting, I imagine, from the start. Scott actually mentions it in the comments. He said that he started saving after lap 6, but it was too late. And that's actually one of the big things, Johnny, is that in my mind, one of the worst things you can do to yourself is try to change strategy midway through, because generally you want to commit.
You got to commit.
Time. But this car uses so little fuel that it can be difficult to fuel save, because I think if I remember right, Perez said he had something like, there it is, 0.8 of a liter left, 0.8 liters left for a one more full lap. That tells me of over 26 laps, you only need to save what is that, 0.3? No, not 0.05 liters a lap or something, or maybe even less. So it's not a huge amount you have to fuel save, but that, of course, is very dependent on how much fuel the car uses. And we know the car is very fuel efficient because it's only got, like you said, I think it was a 4 or 5 gallon fuel tank in it, doesn't it?
Yeah, 4.9 max that you can put in for the entire race. So that's why the drivers struggled this afternoon. But our next races, Randy, that we will cover will include weeks 10, 11, and 12. Those will be in November. That will include the Circuit Park Zandvoort, the brand new Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya
on iRacing, and then Australia's own Phillip Island circuit. And can I say, Randy, out of all the commentary booths I've been to, probably been the best so far, compared to some other circuits I won't name where there's like, tarantulas, spiders, man, spider webs, like air conditioners I'm too scared to switch on. Phillip Island is
well, if you're
the
scared
classiest
of spiders,
of the
you
bunch.
live in the wrong country, mate.
Yeah, well, what do we have, like 10 of the most deadly in the world or something? Or I
Yeah,
don't know.
something like that. You had 10 of the most deadly spiders, and yeah, I think so. And you got bears that drop out of trees and kill people. It's not nice.
No.
It's not nice what happens there in Australia.
Is that true?
No, of
Has
course
that
that's
happened
not
before?
true. But no, I mean, it's an interesting sequence of racetracks these guys have coming up. They have New Hampshire. I believe they're running the Oval, which is, of course, classic in these Pro Mazdas, being part of the road to Indy. Then they have Nürburgring. Road Atlanta will be a fun circuit for these guys here, Johnny, because that's just, a Road Atlanta, I think, is just a fun track in general that really suits a lot of different cars. Really provides good racing. Then Silverstone, I believe they're running the new layout. They are running... No, I think they're running the old one. I think that's the old one.
Really?
I'm not 100% sure looking at it. It just says Silverstone.
Oh, yeah, no, it is. Correct.
Yeah,
Yep.
so
No,
they're
excuse me.
running
I
the
got that
older
wrong.
layout of Silverstone. That's a little bit of a surprise. But regardless, Zandvoort, a super fun track, and is a track that hosts this sort of tracks in real life. These cars in real life. But Barcelona, I think that's one maybe I think everyone's looking forward to. That has become a bit of a fan favorite and a member favorite, I think, on the sim, with the getting added to the sim just in this past build. And it is a lot of fun.
Yeah, it definitely is. Multiple layouts, of course, that can be used at Barcelona, and it's a splendid job by iRacing to get such a brilliant circuit, laser scanned as usual, out there on the service. But for now, though, we will say goodbye from the commentary booth here on RaceSpotTV. Hope you enjoyed all the action, of course. Subscribe on iRacing.com, and you can take part in the Pro Mazda action today. Once you license yourself up, you'll be able to compete with the talent and possibly able to fuel save at next season's Interlagos if we do indeed race there, possibly, and battle it out with the likes of Gabriel Perez and challenge him for victory. Visit RaceSpot.tv for more information on upcoming broadcasts. But for myself, Jonathan Simon, Randolph Cheneth, my co-commentator and producer for today, we say so long from Interlagos.